Hello everyone, Tally and Farrell here from Board of It, and welcome to our look back video for July.
Now, if you've watched this series before, you know what it's about, but in case you haven't, essentially every month we only get to do big reviews of a few games, but we play a lot more, and some of these we'll never talk about, maybe because, we don't like them and we don't want to have to play them a bunch to review them. Maybe they're just old games that just won't get much coverage if we do a video of it. But we obviously enjoy talking about board games and we like knowing what you guys think. So we're just going to use this as an excuse to go through the games that have caught our attention this month that we've played and discuss each of them a little bit. And we preface them with some humorous award names to distinguish them from the crowd.
We think they're humorous.
Yeah, well, that's all that matters. But that is the general idea. So we will just jump straight to it with our first game.
So first up, we have the award for the best pub game, specifically of July 2020. And that goes to Zuli. So we were actually sent Zuli as a Kickstarter preview, so I think this won't be the final form of the game. But essentially, it's a very cute tableau builder. Yeah. Where you're basically aiming to create your own nature reserve. And you basically have to draft cards and lay out your animal enclosures in front of you, and they have a limit on the space that you can have, and you have to make the animals fit into the enclosures basically, and some considerations to make around which animals can be paired together, and it's basically like a combo builder as well, so certain animals go together, you'll get more points, or you might get negative points for putting this animal and this animal together. But we've really been enjoying it, and it gets the award for best pub game of July 2020 because we did take it to the pub and introduce it to a friend who's not particularly into board games, and she really enjoyed it, and was interesting actually because a lot of people around us in the pub were looking over, weren't they, and saying, "Oh my God, what's that game? It's really bright. What is that?" So it gathered a lot of interest from the colour scheme as well. It's very cutesy, very bright. But we've really been enjoying it, and look forward to teaching it to your mum when she visits us this week. But we'll be doing a preview video, I think, in September when it's released. Yeah,
so I think going back to what you said about the playing with a friend that doesn't really play board games, I think that was the idea behind this game, I think this company. They basically want these bridging games that are simplistic to play at the core, but they actually have some more complexity and decision space, and I think it does that pretty well. I mean, it's still a nice simple card game that's over in 15 minutes, but like you're saying, you're trying to, these animals have sizes, and the enclosures have sizes, so you can only fit a certain number of animals, or like maybe one animal in one enclosure, but then also they have these scoring combinations, like bears want to be alone and they score more, or if you get like 3 tree frogs together, they double their scores, and then it's like a huge multiplier.
And the sloths don't want to be alone.
Yes, exactly. I think they don't score right unless they're with someone. And so the basis of this is actually quite fun as well, because it's just as an example, which is in front of us, the drafting system from Innis, where you get this, everyone gets like 8 cards and you take one and pass it. And so you kind of have to weigh up what you want and your strategy with like, will someone else take that? And be aware of what they're going for as well. And you have this like little drafting game before the actual like puzzle of putting things everywhere. But I think we won't talk too much about it other than say we enjoyed it as like a more simple, lighter game, good for like family, non-board gamers. I
think if that's the
pubs,
the mission of the company that's making it, and they succeeded quite well, because like I said, everyone really was like wanting to know what it was, very attention grabbing, and good introduction into some kind of basic game mechanisms, I guess, drafting and combination building and everything.
So, exactly. I think, the thing is that we'll talk about it a bit more later, but essentially, I mean, we prefer heavier games, obviously, but it was definitely interesting enough for us to enjoy playing it and like want to play it again, and it would definitely be like, at least at the moment, a top game, like if I was just going to put something in my pocket and take it to the pub or whatever. over other things just because it's like simple to explain, 15-minute playtime.
There's always place in our collection for these kinds of games, right, that we can transport and teach people, even though when it's, we're at home, we prefer heavier games, but always have a place for games like that in our collection, so we're very happy to have it.
Yes, so that was Zuli and the Pub Award, so let's move on to the next game. Next up, we have the game which receives the award for I Didn't Know Salmon Could Live in the Middle of a Dry Prairie award, and that goes to Cascadia, which was a Kickstarter game that has just fulfilled or is fulfilling, and we got our copy, and it's a little tile laying puzzle game. I believe it's from the people who did a game called Calico, which is supposed to be I haven't played it, we haven't played it, but a pretty intense like puzzle tile laying type game, fitting things together. This is in a similar vein. And it's quite a simple core where you have these little hexagonal tiles. How many sides? Hexagonal, yeah. And with like some sort of terrain or maybe a mix of terrains on them, mountains, prairie, river, whatever. And they're paired in front of you with animal tokens. And there's 5 different types of animals: fox, salmon, eagle, bear, and elk. Yeah, elk. And essentially what it is you have these and you'll like draft a pair each turn. So they're put together randomly and you'll have to take both of them.
One tile and one token.
Yeah, one tile, one token. And then you can put the tile anywhere. You have a starting kind of grid tile thing. You can put it anywhere you want, and you can also put the animal token anywhere that it can go, because these tiles will tell you what animals can go in them, but they don't have to go together. They can go wherever individually. But what you're trying to do is you'll have these 5 scoring cards, one for each type of animal, and they'll just give you some prerequisites of how you score. So maybe this round salmon want to be in one big long chain, with each salmon touching no more than 2 salmon. So it's just like a big line of salmon. You score lots of points the longer it is. Other times, maybe you'll want 3 bears grouped together, touching each other's habitats, and then you want that a bunch all over the map. Just little things like this. And so it gets the award for I Didn't Know Salmon Could Live in the Middle of a Prairie, because weirdly, and I guess this is more for flexibility, but some of the landscape tiles have animals that you wouldn't think could live there. Like you just get like a river or like a water tile with like an elk on it, or you get a salmon on like a prairie tile, and the prairie tiles just look like the desert, so it's even weirder that you're just like putting a salmon in the middle of a dry, arid plain. But so what do you think about it?
Yeah, it's really lovely game, really loved it. I think I said before, but we got into tile laying games fairly later on, like we didn't have that many in our collection in the beginning.
Still don't really, I think.
No, still don't, but I actually really love the genre. And like massive bonus points for being set in one of my favourite places that I've ever visited, or in that area of the world. So Cascadia is in the Northwest Pacific area.
Yeah, it stretches
US, Canada, Alaska.
From Idaho up to almost the Yukon.
Yeah, so I'm a massive fan of that. So that I find tile laying games really soothing, and then when it's set in nature as well, and that like beautiful nature that I personally love, that kind of scenery, then it's just like love it. Major bonus points for me. So I just want to say, actually, it's a very pretty game, and actually the artwork is done by Beth Sobel, who famously does the artwork for Wingspan as well. I thought I recognised.
So it's super nice, and actually what's quite cool is the difference in her style, yet how nice it is, because the animals here are much more, because like the birds in Wingspan are like watercolor in a way, and these are like more realistic on the scoring cards, and it's still like super nice. But
I really like how so you have 5 objectives every game, and one is relating to each type of animal, but those objectives will change every game, and you can have easier ones and more advanced ones, right? So
I think so, yeah.
Even though the game's kind of simple and you're kind of doing the same thing every game, the fact that you have these different objectives, it does make you think in a different way about it. It makes it feel
100%.
different and fresh every time. So really been loving it. Again, I think this is something that we could definitely introduce to people who are not hardcore gamers, and I think they could pick it up fairly easily. And I would like to teach people this one.
I just want to play it more. Honestly, I've been itching to play and we haven't had time for the last couple of days.
Yeah, we'll have to try and fit it in today somehow. Just really nice, solid little game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's just, like you said, it's really soothing. Yeah. It's simple, yet the puzzle complexity is really high, so you're really engaged when you're playing. And what I like is they have a lot of different mechanisms to negate luck, because obviously you're drawing a random tile and you're matching it with a random animal, and what's there might not work for you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like these little, won't go into them, but little ways that you can negate luck. And that's just, it's a really nice thing. And another thing that I really like, which you touched upon, is you have these 5 different scoring cards. And I think there's 4 or 5 of each animal. So you have so many possible combinations, and these really do push you in different directions. And every game feels really unique in, even though the very core gameplay loop of you just take a tile and an animal token and put them somewhere. Because you're doing a puzzle, it feels really different each time, which is something that's really nice, because you would maybe think on the whole that this is something that could get repetitive quickly, and I don't think it's going to be the case at all.
No. And something I really liked as well is that you score for the objective cards, but you also score for contiguous habitat types. So it's another layer of decision making there. Because, I found in my second game I was trying to make bigger habitats rather than trying to score off the objective cards. Obviously, I was trying to do a bit of both, but sometimes when you take a tile and an animal token, I was thinking, actually, I'm going to lay it in a way where I'm going to score more points from having like the biggest river or prairie land or whatever it is. So I like that you can't always tell who's winning either, because actually when it comes down to the scoring, someone might have done really well in the objective cards, but you might have actually done a lot better than them on getting the contiguous habitat tiles next to each other. And I think, I think in our second game you were surprised how well I did, because I started scoring on the habitats a bit more.
Maybe, I don't know.
I think, because I was making a bit
Was
more
I surprised?
effort. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I think you were.
Surprised you won, maybe.
Did I win?
I thought you won one.
I can't remember now.
I think you won the second.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually. Yeah, so it's just an additional layer of decision making there with regards to objective cards, but also habitats, and quite a lot to score up for at the end. So there's a lot going on, considering how simple the game is, actually.
Yeah. But that was Cascadia, and it won the award for I Didn't Know Salmons Could Live in Prairies. And we'll honestly probably do a review of this because we really enjoy it. Yeah. So watch out for that.
So next up, we have the award for You Can't Object to an Objection. And that goes to Lawyer Up.
You can try, though. You can certainly
try. Yeah.
You did.
Me?
No, you tried to object to an objection.
You were always trying to object my objections.
Only after you did it first.
Sick of it. Lawyer Up is a 2-player head-to-head tug-of-war style game, reminiscent of something like Watergate or 1960 Making of President. Maybe a bit lighter than that kind of thing. It's just all kind of card-driven.
Yeah, I guess the lacking element is a central board, right? Yeah. But you're right, it's very much a head-to-head tug-of-war.
Yeah, exactly. Set in the courtroom with one player as the
courtroom.
The courtroom. Been watching too much Suits.
Yeah.
With one player is the prosecution and one is the defence. And you effectively you kind of draft cards at the beginning, and then you have a big deck. You draw 5 every round, and each card has a value on it, which kind of goes against or is points given to you as the prosecution or the defence. And the cards have effects on them as well that can happen in that round. So it could be add 2 to the value of all your cards, or remove a piece of evidence from the other player's examination area, whatever it might be. And then the player with the highest value at the end of the round, once all the cards have gone or the player passes, wins the witness. And then the difference in, is it influence?
Yeah.
Yeah, the difference in the influence points, as it's called, between the prosecution and the defence. That the person that wins can use that difference to sway the jurors, effectively.
Yeah.
And the person who sways the jurors in the best way at the end of the game wins. But there's some different No?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, yeah, it depends, right, on the different scenarios.
Yeah.
That's only the first scenario. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can sway the jurors, or like the end goal is different because there's some different scenarios. So we've played three. Did we play three of the scenarios?
Yeah.
And
2 in the main box.
Okay.
And there's 2 expansions, and we've played one of them.
So the way that you kind of win over the jurors is different in each of the scenarios. So I think in the most basic one, it's just because on each juror there's 2 pips, let's say, for the prosecution and 2 pips for the defence. So you have to just move the token into your side. Whereas one of them that we played most recently, the prosecution has to completely sway the jury, and if there's only if there's even one juror on the side of the defence, you can't have hung jury basically. Then the prosecution just doesn't win and the defence wins. So it's slightly different depending on the scenario how you exactly win.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can I go?
Yeah, go on then. What are your thoughts?
So I absolutely love lawyer stuff. So this was like an instant back for me. And I do enjoy it. It's nicely thematic. I don't think it's maybe the best head-to-head game, but like Watergate is a standout for me, I think. But I do really enjoy it. And I like how each scenario changes. Changes up the what would you say? How you'd play it,
the win,
because it's like you say in the first one, the starting case, you just it's like majority of the jury wins. The second one, murder trial, which is in here, that is, as you said, either one holdout or prosecution wins every witness. Then the witch trial we played is that you actually you either have to keep people alive as a defense or like kill people for being witches, eliminate them as the prosecution. So then it's quite different because like you have to get so many tokens on one person, and then they're too suspicious, and that
was completely different, wasn't it? Like the jury wasn't even a thing.
No, the jury isn't in that thing. No. It's more about the people in play. But it's nice that they do change it up because I think there was some worries about replayability, and I do maybe worry about the main murder case because in the starting case, which is an art forgery one, you have these different like decks that you can fit in or out. So you can play like the intro case, which doesn't have a lot of cards that you add into it. And then you can play a massive case with like all of these decks of cards mixed in, or you can mix in like the one about extortion, or the one about like the actual art forgery, or like things like this. So you can vary that up by what cards you see and what they do. Yeah. Whereas with the murder one, you always have everything. So I could see that besides swapping sides, maybe you'd get a bit repetitive.
I don't know. What comes into your hand though at what times is going to be different every time.
Also the drafting, right?
Yeah.
Because depending what people are dealt, you draft cards that you don't see that round really. Yeah. So you're right. I guess it's not. I'm not saying it's a big issue, but I think like if you played it 10 times, would you then be like a bit like, I just want to play a new case?
I don't think it has any less replayability though than something like Watergate though, right?
Yeah, okay, that's actually
has, like,
fair.
A lot less cards. Yeah. There's a lot of cards in here that I mean, to be fair, a lot of them are similar and do similar things, so it's not like they're all completely unique. But
that's a really good point. To be fair,
yeah,
because once you know the cards, it's like. That's kind of the game, right? Because then you're counting on things coming up.
Exactly. It might even be better once you know more of the deck.
But I think, it's a really solid game. If you like head-to-head 2-player Tug of Wars, I can honestly recommend it. The one thing I would say is that the rulebook is pretty crap. And it's a bit of a struggle. Like, it's like weird font and poorly printed, and it misses stuff out. And this is a criticism that I've heard from other people as well that I've spoke to about the game. So it's definitely one of those games I think you'd have to go on Board Game Geek and find the errata for, or like the FAQ. But that would be the main downside. But it's a simple enough game that it's not really an issue because it's quite simple. because it's just like you play a card and you have to match the symbols on the card to the card you've played before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice. You have a bit of maneuverability. But I think we may review this one as well in the future.
Yeah.
So maybe watch out for that.
Yeah.
I think it'll be in a couple of weeks though, because I think we've got ones we'd rather review first.
And I want to play. I haven't played as the defense yet.
Oh yeah, I want to
always
swap
been
around. Yeah.
prosecution, so we should swap.
Yeah. All right. But that was the award for You Can't Object to an Objection, which is obviously because the first time I objected to Tally, she objected to my objection, or tried to.
I have no recollection of that.
Yeah, it was, I played an objection like the first game, and you're just like, so I was like, you got to get rid of that card, and you were just like, I object, and like put the token on, you can't object. But
Why though?
Lawyer up. Next up, we have the Knife Fight in a Phone Box Award, which goes to the Estates, which you might have seen if you follow us on Instagram, but we got a kind of capstone games haul that we bought this month, and this was one of them. And I got it because I'd heard on an old Shut Up and Sit Down podcast how interactive and like much fun I think Quinn's had playing it, and that it was a bit brutal and cutthroaty, so it sounded like our kind of thing. Yeah, but in this you're essentially all competing building companies, and the city has opened up 2 streets, or they've said to you, hey, we want 2 new streets of buildings, like do it. And all the building companies go, we'd rather make more money. So they start building 3 streets worth of new buildings, and then the city gets mad and they go, well, the second you finish 2, we're cutting off the funding. So the way it works is on your turn, you basically pick a component, and that component goes up for auction. And then all the other players bid on it. And when it gets back to you, you either pay the highest bid, or the person that says the highest bid pays you and gets the token that you've picked. And the way it works is you have these like big physical building blocks, cubes, and you put them on the board and you build buildings upwards. And then you have to finish them with a roof. And the roof and the blocks all have numerical values, and the score for that building once completed with the roof is like everything added. But you only score for 2 completed streets. So once you've completed the second street, that every building has a roof, the game ends. So any buildings you have on the unfinished third street are then negative points. So you have this really cutthroat game of like making streets longer, so people have to put more buildings in them to finish them, or basically people can be like building a building and you just put a block of yours on top, and then if they can't do anything else, like, so the block on the top of the building before the roof is the one that scores. So
yeah, you're the owner then.
Yeah, so you have, I think, 6 different colours, 5 different colours. It doesn't matter, but you have different colours of blocks, and the first person to buy a colour of that block will get like a stock sheet that says they own that company. And so if you own green and you have a green block on the top of the building, then the roof goes on, you're the only person that scores that building. So you also have this thing as well where you can like, people can focus on one street and then you can make that street longer for them so they're further away from completing it, or you can like jump on top of someone's building that they've been working on and things like this essentially. And it's just really cutthroat and maneuverable, and there's a lot of interesting mechanics there. It's something that we played at 2-player actually, and we really liked.
Yeah. And
we played at 3-player, and it was pretty good. Like to play it more.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I do like it, but it is absolutely savage. It's one of those games I personally find it really hard to foresee the consequences of all my actions. Like I think I have a strategy and I'll put that block on top of that block and that will cut that player off, but then I don't foresee the entire consequence of it, and it's just really hard to know what the board state is going to be like when it comes back to your turn. Yeah. And it has this auction element as well, right? So kind of that got maybe a bit more interesting at 3 players as well. The auction element, but it was still fun at 2.
It's still really fun at 2.
But what is also quite fun about it is it's a closed economy. So you can kind of count the money and see, because how it works is you go back and forth setting the price for a block. So you might set it high because you know that the other player really wants to buy it, but you have to know that they have enough money to buy it. Otherwise, then you have to buy it and you have to pay them. Yeah. So that's a really interesting thing. And you can kind of see there can be times where you know that you want to block, but the other players don't have enough money because you know how much they have based on how much you have.
Yeah, exactly.
So then you can just set the price like to what you need it to be. And it's very, I think we would put it in that category of games that we like, where it does a lot with a little. Like it's just some coloured blocks, but the depth of the strategy is it's really deep. It's one of those games I think is kind of like The King is Dead for us, where we play all these big, heavy, complex Euros, and then that kind of game has us all sat around going,
Except maybe this one's a little less like, and more like, you...
Yeah. That makes me go.
I think it's just what I love. I do love this mechanic, like you say, that the money never goes out the game. So you're either paying or getting paid. And it's just this point of like, what price can you set that either you get what you want or that they will pay it. And when you miscalculate that, it's so bad when you're like 5 million and then they just like, okay, and then you have to like pay them 5 million. You're like, no, I don't even want this block. And it's just like that kind of thing. But it's definitely, if you just want something like, more like social, like kind of like beer and pretzel game, like a bit of fun, like nothing too serious. This is super fun and really interesting. I look forward to playing it more.
And the blocks that come out of the bag are different every time. So
that's true.
Not draft, that's the wrong word, but you pull a set amount of blocks out of a randomizer bag every game. So it kind of makes you, it changes the game up a little bit as to what companies you might want to buy into, because in some games there can only be 2 green blocks in the selection. So maybe you don't want the green blocks because, and if they're all higher numbers, they're only going to go on the bottom of the buildings. So you know that you're never going to be able to get any blocks on the top. So you kind of have to think about which companies do you want to buy into based on the blocks that are available in that game as well. And that's interesting.
Well, I think one fascinating thing as a final thought is that this is a game you could actually win by buying no blocks, like in terms of getting their stock sheets, because you could literally just not buy any and so have no stake in any colour and just manipulate the game so that everyone else, like no streak gets completed and everyone else scores negative. And then if you just sit on 0 and everyone's negative, because if the streaks aren't completed, everyone gets negative points and it can be who gets the least negative points. And like, it's just really fascinating that this can be a game where you almost don't engage with the core thing that like any new player would by just you could be like, you could just keep extending streets or buying blocks that people really want. And because you don't care about it, you can just like throw it out the game. And it's just super cool.
You could win with having like
-10. But so this was the Knife Fight in a Phone Box Award because very tight and competitive. And we really enjoyed that actually. So states.
So next up we have the Board Game Beauty Pageant Winner Award. And that goes to Parks,
for its wonderful artwork.
For its wonderful, beautiful artwork, and is probably the most beautiful game we have in our collection.
So I think some people would also debate Innis being quite beautiful, if you like that art style.
Yeah, true, but Parks is a worker placement game where you have some little hiker workers.
I think they're just going on a hike.
Sorry, poor little hikers. Some hikers that you basically move down a trail, and each time you stop in a location on the trail, you will get to do a thing, that whether that be take some resources or buy gear or visit a national park.
Yes.
And it's based on the 52 Parks series, so it's all of the cards or parks that you're going to be visiting are all national parks in the US.
59.
59.
I thought 52 didn't sound right.
Yeah,
59 national parks.
59 national parks. And basically you're gathering the resources as you hike along the trail for the end goal of visiting national parks, basically, because they're the things that are going to get you the victory points, and who has the most victory points at the end of the game wins. There are some other ways to get victory points along the way, like taking some beautiful photos, but visiting the national parks is the main way of getting points. And we got this game sometime last year, maybe like 10 months ago or something like that. But we just wanted to give it a shout out in this video because we didn't play it for a while and we got it out randomly one Friday night, I think, this month in July, and just really enjoyed it. Not that there was no reason why we stopped playing it, but just we had other games to play.
Cult of the New.
Yeah, exactly. And then we just really enjoyed it and then played another game in quite quick succession.
Yeah,
We're
probably.
like, this is a really good game. Why didn't we play it more in all these months?
Probably get out this week as well with my mum coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, we basically just wanted to highlight this because we won't talk about it too much as we actually have a review of parks.
Yeah.
So if you're in any way interested, check that out. You can actually see the dogs in the park if that's a highlight or an incentive. But it's just that this is like a really, really basic, simple worker placement game. Like the whole loop is that you move like one space forward, you get a sun resource, you get to the end of the trail, you spend the sun resources, you get a national park, it has points printed on it. And there's like 2 other ways to get points that you can complete objectives and you can take photos. And it's like very, very simple, yet it's just such a nice, solid little game. Like we were just playing it and like, you know, we're playing Vital Lacerda games more often than we're playing lighter games like this, but it's just a really solid, nice little game that I really enjoy. Like there's a lot more decision space than you think. Yeah. And you should definitely get the Nightfall expansion, which is hiding. I don't know if you can see it up there, but that's so in the original, the year cards are pretty terrible in that they're not worth the effort that goes into them to give you the points in return. Yeah. Whereas the new ones, they give you points based on how much you do of that objective, which is a way better system. And you also get these little campsites which let you do alternate actions, and they're like really interesting as well. And so the decision space is like even more chunky. And it's just yeah, I think this is someone you could very easily teach to someone that's not into board games. And yet we're avid heavy board gamers and we're really happy to play this over and over. Like I'm looking forward to playing it again. Yeah. Like for a 3rd time this month or whatever. Yeah. And yeah, that's just all we wanted to say. So if you don't know parks and you want something lighter and something pretty, because all of the artwork on the park cards is part of this 59 Parks series, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It's incredible. Like I just like getting out to look at it.
I like anything that's based on real places. That's always going to be a bonus, massive bonus for me. And I love how they say where the parks are and what state they're in. They have a little fact about them at the bottom and like when they were instated or whatever. So I just love anything about that. In the pub quiz, geography is my specialist subject. We do a pub quiz every week. So this really is like feeds into my personal interest in that regard as well. And like travel and...
Last week we actually had national parks as a category, right?
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. I don't think actually we got any points from playing this though. I think we knew that the US was the first country to kind of create national parks, and maybe I think I already knew that before we had this, to be fair. But yeah, shout out to Game Trays as well. The Game Trays, storage solution in here is amazing. It's just so easy to get out, isn't it?
Such
just
a solid, beautiful box, like project.
Yeah. And the resource components are like wooden and rustic, and it all just ties in together so nicely.
But yeah, so like I said, we have a review if you want more in detail. We just wanted to highlight this again if you're thinking about it or hadn't heard of it, just because it's great. But that was Parks. So next up, we have the award for Rough and Roll, and this goes to Roman Roll, which is actually probably the most recent game we've got on here. Yeah. But we just wanted to talk about it in the interest that we've always said that this is a medium so we can talk about things that maybe older games that we wouldn't cover, or even games we don't like. And this falls into the category of, I think, games we don't like.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So we got a few more roll and writes this last couple of weeks. And this we're looking forward to because it's supposed to be like really interactive roll and write. And I've heard good things anyway. And it just really, it's one of those few games, like we're actually pretty okay with like most board games. Like even if we know it's not like the greatest game of all time or like it's kind of average, we can really find a lot of joy in playing it.
Yeah.
Like we're pretty easygoing, let's say, in just playing a game.
I think we can always see that there might be another occasion to play something. Even we didn't really like playing just us two, but maybe when our families come we can play it, or these people, and we can always be like, okay, but that's for them. Yeah,
honestly, there's probably like a handful of games like that I could count on one hand that I would say that about, but on like the first couple of plays. But this was one of them. I think you hated it a lot more than me the first time. And then the second time, almost doubly enforced that for you. And it made it a little more apparent for me that I wasn't a fan either.
Yeah.
But I mean, so one of the first things is that this game, like the artwork and the style, it's honestly, this came out in 2020. And
I was absolutely shooketh when you told me that. The
theme and the artwork and the style, it looks like a educational game you would have played at school on like a Windows 96, like when you're 8, like that art style, you know, where it's like a still image of a Roman guy, like, and words are coming out, text at the bottom, like it's educational and crappy, and that's the art style. Second to that, it's a roll and write, so you have these pens, and you write on the main board, and you write on your own boards, but they've given you these really terrible, chunky pens that have zero finesse. So anything you write is like instantly like smudged and like unreadable. Like you're just trying to put a W and it just comes like, it's like
smudge.
Like you can't. So writing looks awful as well, and you have no finesse. So it's really like bad usability, like user interface. So that weighs it down. And then just generally, so the way it works is you roll some dice and you draft them and they let you do actions. Maybe the dice will let you do one action. Maybe you have an option of 2. Maybe it just gives you resources. And, you know, it's kind of like you're gathering resources or you're building buildings and you're putting them into things, and all different things generate VP. There's a few actions like building on this main central board where you draw buildings, which again is really ugly because you just draw like a shape, but because the board is so busy, it's like really difficult to see the shapes that you're drawing.
But it's not even just shapes. You have to write what type of building you have built. And then you've got these chunky old pens, and you were writing what you had built there. And it does matter what is next to it, because it can generate VP when you build a building. It depends. You have these different conditions. Oh, if you have this type of building next to you, get this or whatever. But when you can't read what it is, it's just... I just don't understand why you would make the decision to have a chunky pen.
And it's just, and then the gameplay itself is, it feels like it feels like obtuse and like
clunky.
Yeah, that's the exact word I was looking for. Clunky. It just, nothing feels smooth. It's not like you pull off like, oh, this turn I can like spend those resources and get that and then do this. It's just like shifting a wardrobe around is what it feels like, but in game form, like trying to do anything. Yeah. And the thing is, it's supposed to be quite interactive, and like I think if you play with 3 or 4, the main board comes a lot more into it. So it's something that we do want to play with 3 or 4. But then you also have this issue of like, we don't really like it, like as mechanically. Like, and if we bring 3 or 4, like we could be playing anything else. So would we ever do that?
Yeah.
So this is almost like straight onto like our maybe like sell or trade pile.
And that's never happened.
No,
I
never.
think we're always pretty willing to give games a chance. A lot more. Like even if we didn't love it at 2, we say, okay, well we'll try it with 3, but I don't have any desire to do that with this because it was just quite unpleasant. To play with 2. I like the idea of it, like being an interactive roll and write, and like having the central board. Like, it's a good concept, but I think it just doesn't quite get executed in the same way for me. In a good way for me. In the first play, I mean, maybe it was just me being tired and not really getting it. You always read the rule book, so you got it a lot more than me, but I just didn't understand it in the beginning. And we're playing like Vital Lacerda games. I'm not saying that I get them straight away either, but I can get it. And I was just so confused by this one, and I think like the symbology didn't really help. And when I really thought that this was because you've bought a few games recently that are a bit older. I really thought this was 10, 15 years old. And you said, no, it was out last year. I was absolutely shocked, actually.
Well,
it just doesn't...
I just want to give an anecdote about you just saying, like, how, like, yeah, the interface and, like, the symbology. So you have on the player boards are all unique. So you, like, randomly get them and they kind of push you down a route of, like, some of the, you know, one's good at conquering, one's good at building, whatever. But they have these little advisors that if you bribe them, they give you powers, and they will also give you points at the end of the game if you like complete, like, encircle all of their circles. And what's hilarious about this that happened to you is, so on the main board, like, you have this row of advisors and there's 3 of them, and it's like in Roman numerals, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you do 2, you get the first power. When you do 3 and 4, you get the second power. And then if you want them to score points for you, they have a 5th circle that's not in a line of circles. It's like over here by their name. And
I'm getting angry thinking about it.
There's no attention, like, drawn to the fact that if you want the points for that person, you have to encircle. Like, you could easily look at this board and just not realize that circle is even there, like, 'cause it's just kind of up next to their name. It's nowhere near the others, and you didn't realize this, and you missed out on like 8 points in, I think, the first game, and you just, like, flipped.
I thought I'd completed them. Why would the 5th circle be in a different location? I was so
You were
livid.
so mad because you tanked both those games as well.
Yeah,
you got like half as much points, and that was like the final straw.
Yeah, no, just I like the idea, but for this, another theme, another design, like better, smoother design. I think it could be cool. So if there's any other interactive roll and writes that you can suggest for us, we'd be happy to look into it. But for this one,
this was
found
bounced straight off.
So like, clunky, and it's a bit like you only have 5 buildings that you can build on the main board every time.
I think 5? I don't know, maybe close
5, 6 or something like that, maybe 6. And I just didn't find them that interesting. Yeah, because you can change the buildings, right? And I just was like, I don't really. I mean,
to be honest, let's just end there and say that that's the issue. Is that none of the actions were particularly interesting. In many ways, a lot of it was just like really simply collecting some random resources and trading them. And and everything was clunky. Blah blah blah. Yeah. But we just thought that, you know, this was interesting to talk about in a different way, so we thought we'd highlight that. But yeah. So that's Rough and Roll Awards. Next up, we have the 180 Award for Turnaround in Opinion, and that goes to Innes. As this was a game that we played twice, and we were left really
underwhelmed.
Yeah, underwhelmed, like weren't interested. And then we really quite randomly got it out. I guess sometime this month, in that I suggested playing it because I never thought you'd say yes. And then you're just like, yeah, go on then. And then we played it. And honestly, we had a really great game. And then we played again and it was just as good. And now we've really like come around to Innes. Still, I think not like one of our favorite games, right? But we really like, because people love this and we really see now where it can come from, and we're having much more fun games, and I think we're much more likely to get this out in the future. It's like a nice chess-like battle. But the way it works, if you don't know, is that you start with this deck of cards, and you draft them among all the players. So you kind of draft your hand from what you're given, and there's not that many cards. So one of the core aspects is, if you replay it, is that you know what the cards are. So if you don't have them, particularly in a 2-player game, you know someone else has them and that they're coming. Yeah. So you got to think about that as well as the cards you have. And it's just you got some clansmen on a map. You're all different. Well, you're all the same clan. I think you're just trying to elect a leader, but you're somehow different clans under the same clan. and you're trying to elect a leader, and it's a person who like has people in 6 or more locations, or who like controls a region. So they have like, say, 6 people and someone else has 4 of their people, and then they control 4 people because they're the leader of that region. And so it's like control 6 people from other players, or you have these little sanctuary buildings, or to be present in locations that total 6 or more sanctuaries. And so it's really simple in like the kind of actions. You're just moving around, you're discovering new places. The battle system's really simple in that you instigate a battle, and I attack you, you either discard one of your main cards, or you lose a person, back, forth, till you agree to stop, or someone's out. So it's like quite simple, but it becomes really chess-like when you put it all together in this maneuverability. And the fact that to win, you have to announce it. You have to say, I take this pretender token and I'm claiming a win at the beginning of the next round.
Yeah, so it has to make it back to your turn, doesn't it, before you can actually win.
So what are your thoughts then?
Yeah, well, exactly as you said, really wasn't that much of a fan of it. And I really wanted to like it because I do like the art style, and the territory tiles are really beautiful. So I did really want to like it. And then the first time we played and just didn't get on with it. I'm not a massive dude on a map lover. And I also don't like crabs in a bucket mechanisms as well, or king making, where you, if you are about to win, other players can just pull you back down until you are not in a position to win. And that just keeps going round and round and round. I'm not really a big fan of that. I also didn't love, or again, maybe this was just me, but I struggled to wrap my head around the win conditions, because there are 3 of them when we played it first, and you have quite a comprehensive little player aid, and I could really have just done with the 3 win conditions being just printed on there, because you do have to keep checking all of the territories. Okay, does that person, are they near having 6 people? Are they near having 6 sanctuaries? And I just would have liked in those first games to have something to refer back to, because I kind of kept forgetting what they all were. So then I wasn't doing very well. But yeah, really enjoyed the last 2 games. I've got the win conditions cemented in my brain now.
The thing is that honestly, in both games, it came down to the final round, and we both could have won.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, final round, obviously. But what I mean is, when somebody won, we both could have won, and both times you basically lost because you made a mistake. And I think in at least one of them, if not both, if you had realised, you could have won like straight out.
Yeah.
And like, because in the last one, just as an example, I won because I had 2 win conditions and you had 1, which meant that I was in the so I get it by virtue of having completed more. But if you had been like more aware, you could have made me have none and you would have got 1.
Yeah, I find it a little bit tricky to keep track of, because I was putting my troops in a territory, for example, and because Farrell had to be the chieftain of 6 or more of my troops, I was actually handing him the win, essentially. But I was trying to fortify myself. And I find it hard to, like, when you've got a lot of territories going on and all the troops everywhere, to pay attention to that, to the detail in that. I'm very focused on trying to do my own thing all the time. I think that's why I don't like dudes on a map games as much. Yeah. Because I prefer to work on my own thing rather than worry about the threat of you.
It's ironic because you love Euros, right? That's probably why. But then you're much more likely to win this than you are.
I can't win a Euro for love nor money.
But
I enjoy them.
But I mean, the thing is that that's the point, right? That we had 2 games and they both went down to the wire, and that's just really fun for everyone, essentially.
It wasn't crabs in a bucket because we both took the pretender token and we were both out of cards, so the round was going to end anyway. So maybe that's what elevated my enjoyment of it the last 2 times, because I was like, it didn't feel like crabs in a bucket, you stop me, I stop you. It was just like, oh, we're both in a position to win now, and I just enjoyed that a lot more.
Yep. But so that was Innis, a game we have come round to. Maybe at the moment I think they're quite different, but maybe I still prefer Komet.
Yeah.
But I think this always, I see people talking about, has a lot of appealability because it's essentially quick to get out, quick to explain.
It's true.
And you get a lot of chunky gameplay with a few rules and some very quick setup.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so popular, I think, as well. And obviously the negative with Komet is I think it's more fun for me, more swashbuckling. There's a lot more setup, there's a lot more rules overhead, there's a lot more like fiddliness. And we link them because they're both part of Matago's Dudes on a Map trilogy, it's called. So Innis, Cyclades, and Komet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was Innis.
So next up is the return of a very prestigious award that we have awarded other games before this. But it's the Beige Trader Award, and this month it goes to Orléans.
Ironically, not the game with traders in its name, because that's brown traders.
That is very true. Are we just going to anglicise this and call it Orleans and be really uncultured?
Yeah.
Orléans. I tried.
No.
Orleans.
Yeah.
Orleans is a worker placement with a push your luck element. Also some Euro elements as well. So you're essentially, I don't know, what is the backstory? You better say the backstory, the historical backstory.
Yeah,
medieval.
I don't know. I don't even know what you are. You're just an ambivalent person that's trying to, I guess you're some sort of king or royalty. I don't know.
King of Orleans, should we just say that?
Well, no, it's like you're getting lots of people together to do things for you, mainly to get more people for you. It's like a weird chain. It's like...
But you travel around France as well, don't you? Visiting different cities.
Getting trade goods. And
it's basically set in medieval France.
I honestly don't know what you are.
It doesn't say, it just says you need followers and
it's
their abilities.
A really good
who
point.
Are you?
Because I don't know who you are and who the other people are. Because you're getting all the people that you would be, you're like collecting. Anyway,
Anyway, so how it is you, there's a few different things going on. You are someone essentially collecting different types of workers who will do different things for you. So you have the farmers, craftsmen, boatsmen, knights,
monks,
scholars, monks. I think that's about it. And you have a player board in front of you, and basically you need different types of workers to activate different actions. So everyone starts off with the same 4 workers who can do basic actions, but you'll always need at least 2 different workers in order to activate something. So I think in order to go ahead and recruit another farmer, you need a boatsman and a craftsman or something like that. I can't remember the exact combinations. But what you do is everyone has a bag. It kind of like Quacks of Quedlinburg in that way that you are collecting chips, which are your different types of workers. They go in the bag, and then every round you can draw out of the bag. You start off with, I think it's 4 or 5, and then you can use the knights to increase your limit every round, but you essentially draw out, let's say you have 5 workers, place them down the bottom, and then everyone simultaneously decides on which actions they're going to place those workers, and then you can basically activate those actions. So it's kind of worker placement. What you're doing is very Euro, going up and down different tracks to get points and bonuses.
It's all about tracks.
But
and collecting goods. Don't forget collecting goods.
And trading goods. Don't forget the farm goods, which is like cheese, wine, wheat, things like that, and fabric. But yeah, I find it so interesting because it has this push your luck element of. Well, it's not really push your luck. It's not push your luck. It's bag drafting. Sorry, it's bag drafting. But you're relying obviously on pulling out of your bag the specific workers in order for you to do the actions that you need to do in that round, basically. So. But you can do different. Sometimes you can do push your luck because certain actions will allow you. If you get the
that's true.
The bonus tiles, it will say like draw 2 more out of the bag and discard 1 or whatever it might be. And it kind of depends on what mix of workers you're having in the bag and what actions do you want to go for. Because sometimes you could pull out 6 workers and all 5 of them be something that you don't need, right? So you have to kind of like curate the workers that you need as well, and
yeah, and you can send them away as well to the, I can't remember what it's called, the nice track or whatever it's called, the public good track.
Isn't that the town hall?
Yeah, well, no, the town hall's the action. That's not what you send them there. I can't remember, it has a name. But anyway, you can get rid of them as well, and they give you rewards for getting rid of them. And then if you fill them up, you can like score points, basically.
Yeah.
But I have to say that we just played it. And so this would be a game that I look on Board Game Geek's Top 100, and I think it's number 25, or was around there. And my eyes would just glaze over it. Like I wouldn't even see it because I'm like just so generic and like old. But we played it because Capstone is doing the reprint, and this isn't the Capstone version. But when I was like ordering the other Capstone stuff, I saw that they're basically reprinting it, and I was like, yeah, okay, give it a go, because I saw the bag building and I knew Tally would like the sound of that because you love quacks. And honestly, it's been such an enjoyable, solid game.
Yeah. Like,
this has really been a highlight of the month. And, it's old and it's everything you expect, but it does feel fresh just because of this bag drawing aspect. Yeah. And I also like that there's some really wonderful mechanics in that. So say you draw all these people and you have like 8 people out. Maybe you don't have the right ones to do the right actions, because a lot of actions will need 3 people and they're all different. And you're like, okay, I don't have those. But what you can do is you can take these people and you can put them on the action spaces, but just not take the actions. Or you don't even have to fill them up each turn.
Yeah.
So you can
pre-plan.
as you say, you can use a turn to get a bunch of people in the right places, and then next turn you draw all the missing pieces, and then you might end up doing 6 actions instead of 2, for example. And I just find that a really cool element, that you can negate getting bad draws basically by
you can still draw up to the full amount again, even if you've pre-placed people on your board on actions. Because
every action is going to allow you to move up some track or get some reward or get a good or place a building or So I mean, this is quite an old game, so I guess maybe we don't need to say so much more, but it's just been really enjoyable for me.
Yeah, I got really addicted to it. Again, it's
first play, we're just this is really fun.
Yeah, we wanted to immediately play again, and I think we played 3 or 4 times in a row. Not all on the same day, but we left it out on the table because we knew that we wanted to play it again as soon as we got back from wherever we went, or the next day or whatever. But I really enjoy this. I find it really satisfying when you pull out all of your workers and you can place them. And like you said, even if you can't take the action that round, you go, okay, well, I'll pre-plan. I know I want to do that in the future. I'll put that worker there, and then hope that I draw the ones that I need for next time. And I find quite interesting every round there'll be an event. I think it is called an event, right? Where you have something else to think about that round. So it could be at the end of that round, you have to pay coins for every good that you have, or it could be that you have to give goods over, or it could be that you can't recruit a monk that round, or whatever it might be. So as well as just doing your own little thing, you sort of have to think about the negative or positive effects that could be from these events every time, and try and maximise that every round. Although the only thing I would say is that the events are the same every game, which I think is a bit of a shame.
The expansions, I think you can get expansions that give you different ones.
Okay. And the events are the same order. They're repeated even within the game, right? It's just that they might get more or less.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because it maybe shifts your focus a little bit every round, but they are kind of...
Yeah, they're coming. Yeah. It just depends what order they come in.
Yeah.
I think my final thought that I would say about one of the things I love the most is that it's so snappy because you can play concurrently almost. There's only one area, which is this trade route and who's moving and building buildings. That's important to do in turn order.
Yeah.
And the rest of it, so you all do the bag drawing and the drafting and which actions you're going to pick simultaneously.
Yeah.
So it's lightning quick. And then the actions themselves, like I say, if no one's going on this merchant route, then you can all just do the actions at the exact same time as well. Mm-hmm. They're very small, like if you're going up the track at the bottom, the first person to get there gets a reward, right? So you just have to know the turn order and that you're doing that action first.
Yeah.
But 90% of the game you can just play concurrently. So that was Orleans, a game we 100% recommend if you like Euros. It's definitely a classic of the genre and it deserves the Beige Traders Award. But we'll move on to our final game. And the final award is the Highly Addictive Substance Award for the biggest game in this pile and the newest, Coffee Traders. Now, this is a game about the dawn of the era of fair trade coffee and putting, I guess, the power back in the farmers' hands. And it's set kind of during the 70s and 80s, and it's about trading coffee. So the easiest way to explain it is just to go through kind of the structure. Mm-hmm. And this is also a big, brand new game from Capstone Games. Big box, very complex, hundreds and hundreds of pieces. But yeah, so in kind of the first round phase, you'll be building cooperatives with the other players. So you put plantations down in there's 5 different regions around the world, like Indonesia, Guatemala and Brazil. And you'll be putting plantations down, and these will allow you to produce coffee in later rounds. And then once you put the plantations down, you'll be putting workers down to man these plantations, because that means they will be able to produce coffee because someone's working there. And what's interesting is that you'll actually be more interested in putting them on other people's plantations and helping the other players, because you'll get to move up some tracks for it. Then you will move to kind of this like trading / building phase, because one of the other interesting things is that you could have built every single plantation in one area of the map that's present there. Doesn't mean you're getting any coffee. You have to send traders to these locations to trade with the farmers for the coffee and pay for it. And alternatively, in this phase, you can build buildings. Either you can build warehouses, store more coffee, or you can build buildings in these cooperative locations. And these just give you little bonuses. Maybe you'll get 2 of the coffee of that region. Maybe you'll get 1 coffee of any region at the beginning of like the harvesting phase or whatever. But you get little bonuses. And again, what's super interesting about this is that you can follow these actions piggyback. So if Tally says, I'm going to Guatemala, she pays 2 coins, she sends a trader there. Every other player can piggyback for free. So you send them there for free. So there's a lot of cooperation here as well. On what to go. Same for buildings, except you have to pay them a coffee if you want to copy, and you have to build in the region they're building, and kind of the buildings they're building.
Yeah.
But again, it's cheaper than doing it yourself. So there's this nice piggybacking issue, and what are people going to do? Then you harvest the coffee, which is pretty simple. Just the amount of plantations will give a certain amount of coffee. You divide that amount amongst the players who have sent a trader there. So if there's 3 plantations in a 3-player game, they'll make 9 coffee total. 3 people are there, you'll each get 3 coffee of that type. Then you fulfill contracts and you sell it to coffee bars. And this will generate some money and some bonuses. And that's kind of it. And you repeat this whole thing 3 times. And you'll score for literally everything. So in the cooperatives, building the plantations and the buildings is like an area control game. Whoever has the most stuff in each region will get a lot of points, and then less as it goes down. You'll get points for fulfilling contracts. You get points for selling to the coffee bars, who sold the most coffee bars. And honestly, lots of other different ways that I can't even remember off the top of my head. But yeah, so that is it's a really big, heavy game. And what are your thoughts?
It's actually one of my new favourites. I really, really enjoyed this. It reminds me of something like Vinyos, where there's very kind of like limited turns. Mm-hmm. You only get to go through each phase 3 times. So it's so tight. You really have to optimize everything you do, because you can't really. It's not that you can't make mistakes, but you can't really make mistakes because you only get an opportunity to do that particular phase 3 times. So it's very, very tight. But I just love the theme. It looks amazing on the table. I really love it.
Table hog.
Yeah, it's a massive table hog. Even though it's tight, I find it soothing as well. Maybe that's just because you're always kind of going up different tracks and everything scores points. But yeah, I love the theme that it doesn't reward you. It ties in just so nicely with the theme. It doesn't reward you to
make money.
To make money. You can't just buy up all of the plantations and plant your plantations there without putting workers on them, because you get penalised. So it doesn't reward you to try and make a land monopoly, for instance, which obviously ties in with the whole thing, like, about fair trade coffee and putting the power back in the workers' hands.
Money is not worth anything at the end of the game. So, like, money is just like a way to pay the farmers, basically.
Yeah.
Or invest in buildings for the farmers. So that's quite nice as well. I mean, I think personally it's quite frustrating as a gameplay mechanic at the end, because one thing that I dislike is in the final round, it's very much the game where you generate a lot of resources and then you feed them back into the next phase. But in the final round, a lot of these resources are useless when you're generating the most, because your engine's goes up and up.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I wish that, I mean, it goes with the theme of not getting the money, but there's also, you generate a lot of other little stuff and it's really not worth that much, when any other round in the game, it would be priceless.
Yeah, that's true. It takes a lot of work to get some of the things that you need to get make the most out of your plantations or whatever. And it can be quite difficult to get those things. And that is true, that you might not get them until the final round, where they don't help you build the engine. They're just like a product of it, and you could have really done with it in that second year, for instance. But everything is worth VP, even if it's worth not apart from money.
Yeah.
I really like it.
I want to prerequisite that with a lot of the issues. So we got it, and so it's quite an expensive game. I think it's like $120 from Capstone's website. And I mean, it's big, it's chunky, you get a lot of components, but some of our components, like a lot of them arrive dented and broken, which is not great. I think a lot of the cost has gone towards these metal coins you get, which, to be honest, we're not fans of. They're too small and awkward. They're really difficult to pick up and maneuver, and they really just weren't necessary. And I think it's more that it's expensive, and honestly, because I don't like them, I would rather play with cardboard coins in this game than have the metal ones. They're just not that great, I think. And the biggest sin is that this is such a big, complex game, and the rulebook is really not good. It's actually kind of unforgivable that a game this heavy has such a bad rulebook, and how this got through. It's just a lot of things are never specifically stated. You have this cool bonus mechanic, which we won't get into, but you have these 3 options and you can use 2 of them per round. And it never states that 2 of them ever go back, but they must go back, because otherwise it wouldn't work. But it never states they go back. And there's just lots of stuff like this. It's never stated in the rules that you make money for the contracts you fulfill. You have to figure it out through the symbology, or by reading a random example where they say offhand, John gets paid for this, John collects his free money. But you never get told that when you're reading off the checklist of what happens when you... Yeah. So honestly, it's hard for me to recommend until you get... until there's a really good rule set, on Board Game Geek or something. So I think that's a big issue for me. As great as the gameplay itself is all really nice. Yeah. It's just this prerequisite, and the fact there's a lot of money, and you get the Tal Lacerda game for this kind of money without these issues. Yeah, and it is reminiscent of those types of games, isn't it? Interlocking mechanisms and big, heavy, and this is lots of cascading effects as well. Yeah, that you have to keep track of. And maybe you're the rule reader, so I understand that it's frustrating for you, but maybe I just feel more positively about the whole thing. So it's just that we don't want to fault the gameplay, actually, because there's very little I dislike about the gameplay. It's really nice. So the last thing that I want to mention is something that's quite hilarious, because it's one of the worst aspects of design I've seen in a long time. I can't believe this made it through. any kind of tests or quality control.
I almost didn't believe you when you told me. I thought you'd got something wrong.
No.
I was like, that cannot be.
So the 2-player version of this is a variant where you control a fake third player, and as an aside, it works pretty well. It's pretty close to the 3-player game, although this is definitely a game that's just better with more people, playing with actual people. But so you have this separate rule book for the 2-player variant, which is nice. It's just like 4-sheet, or well, basically folded like I guess like A4 sheet almost. So you have like 4 pages. Super nice, and that it's separate. Can you just look at it, have it out? So you open it up, and the rules are on these 2 pages, all just 2 pages there. And the way it works is they say use this player mat for the fake player, put all the buildings and meeples on it, and you go like kind of top down and work through for each phase. And just as another aside, the I don't know what the word is, but the directionality and the way information is visually displayed is really top notch in Coffee Traders in terms of your player board, because it moves from left to right through the phases. And it's really like intuitive, and once you've like played and you know what you're doing, it's really helpful reminders, like the way the information is given to you. So it gets a lot of credit for that. Anyway, so you have these, there's 2 rule books, and it says use a player mat for the fake third player, put all the buildings on it, meeples. And they don't give you a fake third player mat. They've printed the third player mat on the back of the rule book for the 2-player variant. So you can't have the rules open and use the player mat. So if you want to use a player mat, you have to play without being able to check any of the rules. And I was like, flabbergasted, because I could not believe, I'm like, right, so you want me to set this up without reading how to set it up? So we had to play with like Board Game Geek open and using this player mat. I just can't understand how anyone in their right mind would think that putting crucial information in the same thing you use, that means then you can't read that crucial information. That was just really strange and poor design.
Just so nice giving you the separate rule book.
Yeah.
But no, you're not allowed to read it. Like, what's the...
Yeah, it was so strange. But anyway, so this video's probably gone quite long, so we'll stop. And we'll be doing a review of this, I believe, next week, hopefully. We'll see. But that was Coffee Traders. So that was the end of our look back for July. And thanks for watching. And so just some things that we'll have coming up. We've got a review of Merv out now when we're filming this.
Yeah.
We're going to do our review of Coffee Traders, hopefully next week, we'll see. We're going to have a review of Cascadia, I think, coming up.
Yeah.
Maybe Undaunted Normandy at some point.
Yes.
And yeah, maybe Lawyer Up as well. We'll have to see. But I think those are all in the mix. And some games we'll be playing and talking about next time. Hadrian's Wall, which we've played a handful of times and we both really love.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Have to look back. I don't know what.
I think we should talk about Don't Get Got.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about Don't Get Got next time.
Nice anecdotes from that.
I'm trying to think. We've got a few new cartographers, probably a few roll and writes, I think.
Yeah.
Will be coming up next time. And Euphoria, I think, probably, because we got sent the expansion.
Yeah.
So we're going to try that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is some of the things that are going to come up. And please just let us know what you think about the games we've talked about, if you have differing opinions. And just generally, thank you for watching. And if you're not subscribed and you found this interesting, please subscribe. Yeah, thanks so much for watching.
Thanks.
And we really enjoy doing
See
this.
you next time. Bye.